Hello, Happy New Year. I hope y'all had an awesome holiday. I'm excited to be back, and today we're going to be talking about The Circle, Season 5 on Netflix. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So today I wanted to talk about the new season of The Circle. I believe this is Season 5. This time around it seems like they've chosen a theme of circle singles to give the season a bit of a dating angle. On this channel I've covered a couple of seasons of The Circle already, so I wanted to talk about it with y'all. I'm not gonna lie, The Circle has kind of lost me in the last few seasons. I'm not as excited about it as I was around seasons 1 and 2. And the only reason I was really excited for season 5 is because I saw it promoted by one of my favorite content creators through his Instagram and his social media page. His name is Oliver Twixt. He was promoting the premiere date of The Circle season 5. I was excited. I was like, oh my god, one of my favorite influencers is on The Circle. I'm so excited to see him on there. And then I go and watch the first 4 episodes and he is not in them. Originally, I was gonna make this video about the first 4 episodes, but once Oliver didn't show up, I was like, you know what? I'm a little mad. I'm gonna see what the next 4 episodes hold. I'm happy to report that Oliver did arrive in the second batch of episodes, still a little late for my liking. The reason I love Oliver so much as a content creator, it's kind of like a niche personal reason. During the pandemic, he took it upon himself to interview every former contestant of America's Next Top Model, and he took the opportunity as an influencer to take on this project that was a pure labor of love for the fans and for himself as a fan of Top Model. I want to thank Oliver for his service to the Top Model fandom. He is a legend. So anyway, we won't be talking more about Oliver until way later on in this video because he is the very last arrival to The Circle. We're about a little over halfway through the season, and they did get the notification that The Circle is closed, meaning there will be no more new contestants. So it's nice that this video can encompass the entirety of the cast. I just want to give my opinion on each contestant, whether I like them or not, and some contestants I have less feelings about and other contestants I have a lot of feelings about. Marvin, okay, it's Marvin. So let's dive right in. First, I want to talk about in general why The Circle in later seasons has kind of disappointed me. I'm actually really glad I waited to make this video until after episode 8 because I really liked the second batch of episodes better, and especially episodes 7 and 8, I started seeing some of the things that I usually complain that I don't get to see in The Circle. My big issue with The Circle is that there's not a lot of strategy shown on it. I'm an avid fan of Survivor, and I've seen some Big Brother seasons and other social games. Claim to Fame was one of my favorite social games last year. And in every other social game I watch, the contestants are constantly, every episode, talking about strategies and plans to get people out and pitching how do we get this person out, get that person out. And The Circle just lacks a lot of that. It feels very over edited and overproduced, and there's so many chats we don't see on The Circle, or kind of the rules are unclear in The Circle. To me, it's why can certain people DM each other and we don't see everyone DMing each other? There's kind of a lot of mystery around the rules of The Circle. The lack of transparency makes me infer that it's kind of a lot of fake stuff on The Circle. And every reality show is very fake, but The Circle just seems like an extra level of fake than the other reality shows I watch. I feel like every other show I watch, I have a good idea of what the behind the scenes of it looks like. The lack of behind the scenes content for The Circle is something that makes me uneasy, and maybe I'm just a nerd about behind the scenes content for everything I watch, but it's a show I have to not think too hard about, or I will have a lot of questions. Another thing that kind of bothers me about The Circle that we've seen in the past few seasons is that being a catfish, they make it seem like it matters a lot, like it's a big deal and it's shady to be a catfish. In the gameplay, being a catfish doesn't seem to matter too much. A lot of the times when catfish make it to the finals, the rest of the contestants suspect they're a catfish and are pretty sure they're not who they say they are, but they are an ally. An ally is an ally, and they don't mind having a catfish as an ally. It's weird how The Circle kind of villainizes the catfish. It's like a hidden goal for the contestants to weed out the catfish. It's like an accomplishment when someone catches one. It's a little confusing what we're supposed to feel towards the catfish players. So these are my main complaints about the circle. The things I do like about the circle is like the concept itself. I think a lot of the show and the reason I watch it is just the concept alone is interesting. Having people only communicate through an interface, that is interesting. I just feel like the execution isn't the best, or it's too like rigid and produced, where like spontaneity doesn't happen, and therefore like big memorable moments don't really happen. Like I can't name one major strategy that worked. The main one I remember is Delisa season 2, but I think the circle seasons are so rigid, every season feels very similar to each other. And I think season 5, even with the singles theme, there doesn't seem to be much more romance than any other circle season on this one. Another reason I watch the circle is because of the diversity they have with their cast. I usually find some cool personalities to follow, so it's not all hate on my end. I think I'm just critical because I watch other social games and I see like more transparent strategy on those that feel more normal, and the circle just has a lot of fluff and it feels like they just omit a lot of what's going on, and that's suspicious. So as my general opinions on season 5, I will say episodes 7 and 8, there started to be strategy, there started to be explicit plans being proposed and pitched, and some drama going on, people making like dumb mistakes, a lot more outbursts. So episodes 7 and 8 are honestly giving me what I am missing and what I've missed from other circle seasons. So let me go through the contestants, and I'm gonna try to go somewhat quickly, and if I don't have that many opinions on someone, they're just gonna have a short segment here. This is also your spoiler alert, and I'll put timestamps down below to skip around. First, I want to talk about Brittney, which was a catfish played by Brian. He was using his daughter as his profile. He played a pretty bad game. He was not the first blocked, but he was an early block. And he was just not good at playing a young woman character as a catfish. He was kind of boomer. People caught on to him being a catfish really fast. In the Truth or Dare game, she was labeled as annoying and boring. And from then on, it looked like the writing was on the wall for Brittney/Brian. The only person he sort of fooled was Raven, who he ended up visiting after he got blocked. The issue that some of the catfish run into is they play too tentatively because they're not sure how the person they're playing would respond to things, so they end up having no personality. The cool thing about Brian is that he did have a good catfish radar for Bruno, and he told Raven, I think Bruno's a catfish. Next, I want to talk about Raven, who is a top player this season. She is 26 and from Maryland, and she is deaf, so she communicates through ASL a lot of the time. It's pretty cool representation. It's the first for this iteration of the circle, and it's cool to have someone who's predominantly speaking in ASL on such a big platform. And she actually brought her interpreter Paris, and I live for Paris being there because he just seems like he's just there doing his job, and there's something so funny about that, of like he's just the interpreter. At first I expected him to be more of an active role in the game, just like giving advice or something, but he's just translating and he's reacting to things. But there's also some times where it just feels like he's just there to do his job, and he's doing a great job. So Raven's definitely a front runner player. She got influencer the first 2 rankings in a row. All in all, she seems very genuine to people, and she does start a flirtationship with another contestant named Marvin. I think she's one of the types of players who is just very genuine and authentic, and people are really drawn to that. She doesn't seem to have like a very strict strategy she's following or like a malicious intent. She's just playing as herself and making strong connections with her allies. She's kind of good with everybody, and I always love the player in the circle who has unique colored hair. I wonder why. So eventually Raven does get betrayed by Marvin, but I want to talk about that more in Marvin's section. So let's move on to Marvin, because this is probably going to be the longest section. Marvin is so... I hate Marvin, and I love Marvin for giving me such fun TV. Marvin is 27, he's from Houston, and he's a chemical engineer. He is Nigerian, I believe he said. He is playing the circle as himself, but lying about his profession, which is a pretty common thing to lie about in the circle. Instead of saying he's a chemical engineer, he's saying he's a personal trainer because he's literally built like an action figure. It is very believable he'd be a personal trainer. And he is just like such a true himbo. No thoughts, head empty. And I knew, like, in the first few episodes, he just seems like a wholesome himbo. But I had a feeling true colors were gonna show up later. I don't view himbos as purely wholesome. I don't think that exists. I think we learned our lesson with the wife guys of 2022. There are just so many quotes that took me out from Marvin that I could not believe. That's like what I watch reality TV for these like glimpses of authenticity beyond like the polished production. And Marvin's actually in great standing for a lot of the game until the end where he starts really being messy. And I was living for Marvin totally messing up his game because it was just pure raw entertainment. So he actually has a strong alliance with Raven and Chaz, and they form like Team Melanin, and that's an alliance. I hate how in the circle every group chat turns into an alliance after like 2 messages. It's so confusing. That's part of like what confuses me about the show. But anyway, so Marvin has a strong alliance with like the 2 top players for 2 whole rounds, and he starts this like flirtationship with Raven. She teaches him a little bit of ASL. I thought it was a really cute moment. She taught him the word fire, and he often calls Raven his queen. But then a new player named Tamira enters, who is actually a catfish, but we'll get to talking about her later. The way this man is torn when Tamira enters the circle because he already has his queen Raven, and now there is another potential queen in the circle. And immediately he DMs Tamira, and then he's like, "What's up, sexy?" Which is Marvin's favorite line to start a conversation. This is where the red flags officially came out. Marvin says out loud, not to anyone, "Tamira is that type of girl that if you have a wife, you still go out and see." He just sassy sings out loud. I was like, there it is. There is the end of the wholesomeness I was waiting for. Like, after already starting to flirt with Tamira, Marvin goes, talks to Raven, and they get really hot and heavy. Like, I loved that they went there. But then later on, they do the clay game where they have to build a body part out of clay, and Tamira builds boobs. It's a very excellent strategic decision. Marvin publicly votes for Tamira's boobs to win. And Marvin says, "Oh no, Raven's gonna know I like Tamira's boobs."
She's gonna know that I like Tamira's boobs.
I cannot. Tamira chooses him to go on a date because he had flirted earlier. And they go on their date and they have the clay body parts in front of them. And Tamira's like, "I bet he's motorboating the boobs." And cut to Marvin exactly doing that. Marvin immediately gets dirty with her too and starts being very sexual, and they exchange sexy photos. Not like nudes, but just photos where they look hot. And she asked to be his queen, and he's just like, "Okay, sure, you can be my queen." He slightly seems to think about, oh, this might be an issue because Raven's my queen. And then he rationalizes it by saying, they will never find out. So later on they play a trivia game, and everyone does well and upholds their reputation during that. Except Marvin, because they have to choose categories, and Marvin chooses science as his category. I was so annoyed how everyone was so stereotypy, like because Marvin's a personal trainer, he won't know the science question. And then I was also kind of disappointed that like, it seems like in general people don't know about hydrogen and that being the first element of the periodic table. I don't have a good perspective because I also majored in the sciences, and I was on Team Marvin for that one because I was like, oh yeah, this is easy, it won't look suspicious. And then no one knew. Like, he thought that was a general knowledge type of question, and so did I. So let me know in the comments if y'all think that's a general knowledge question. But it's also so funny, Marvin like chooses the science category, answers the question, and it's only until after he's answered it correctly he realizes he did not hold up his image as a ditzy personal trainer. Later on is the glam party where they all share their most glamorous photo. And when he sees Tamira's most glamorous photo, and he says, "I'm glad she's my second queen."
Oh my god, this girl, man. I'm glad she's my second queen.
Like, just no awareness that leading on to women is going to backfire on him. And so the assassination of Marvin happens in episodes 7 and 8. And that's because Raven and Tamira finally discuss the date that happened. And Tamira's just trying to share the tea about her date. She doesn't know Raven and Marvin are dating, technically. Marvin sure didn't mention that on the date. So Tamira shares about her date, and Raven gets upset and tells Tamira, like, hey, he was dating me, so I guess he just flirts with everybody. And Tamira has a really cool attitude. I mean, because the person behind Tamira is very cool. So Marvin's scorned women bond with each other and proceed to rank him very low in the rankings. He even gets called out in the Savage Questions game by both Tamira and Raven. They basically ask the exact same question, like, are you flirting with all the girls and just using them to get to the finals? He says, all the girls? I only have 2.
All the girls, what are you talking about? I have only 2.
The Marvin quotes are sending me into orbit. And he answers with kind of cop-out answers to the Savage game. And even after that, he doesn't realize what has happened, and it doesn't really click for him until he gets the 8th place ranking, and he's like, oh, I fucked up for real. In the circle, anything you do to stand out in a bad way will be held against you, especially if it's close to ranking time. So let's move on, because that was the longest section because Marvin's just such a character, but everyone else is more of a normal-ish player. Most players on these types of games don't make those kinds of big mistakes Marvin did, so that's why it's fun that Marvin's there and made a big mistake, even though in reality he didn't like cheat on anybody. I don't think people take relationships in the circle seriously. Every move is just amplified in the circle. So even though he didn't like cheat on his wife or something like that, he flirted with 2 different people and misled them, and that's enough to get hella targeted in the circle. So let's move on to Sam, who is 34. She's a makeup artist from Brooklyn. I love her accent. It's so New York. And she's totally playing as herself. She has kind of a similar game to Raven, though she is a little more like feisty, and also she has a lot of emotions behind the scenes, but she is very genuine, and I think that wins people over early. Like at the beginning, she takes a risk saying she's cheated on past partners, and people are kind of side-eyeing that, but then actually they appreciate the honesty. She has struggled a bit in the rankings, I think because she isn't as like polite as like the super toxic positivity players. She was last in the first round, and she's sort of stayed in the middle in the rankings. She does have strong connections though, especially with Chaz, who is like the most power player, and she has a good relationship with Raven too. Usually like the genuine players kind of flock together. She really hates Sasha for no reason kind of at first. Sam doesn't have that interesting of a strategy, so she's not like that interesting of a player to me, but she is fun TV. Next I want to talk about Chaz, who he is 28, he's from New Jersey, and he's a car detailer, but he is lying about his profession as well and saying he is a nurse. Chaz is the player I'm rooting for the most in this season. I really hope he wins. He is just such a front-runner player. He's been influencer 3 times in a row, 3 out of 3 rankings, which I feel like it's not common on the circle. So often previous influencers will get rated so low because people want to like knock them off their pedestal. So I don't know how Chaz managed, but he has just really good relationships with everybody. He bonds right away with Sam, being from like the New York area. He does have a moment where he gets vulnerable early on and talks about how he wanted to be a nurse because his brother passed away and he was a nurse. I think every player needs this type of get vulnerable moment, and usually when those happen, people tend to rank them higher. And there's a good example of that later on with Tom, but Chaz got his vulnerable paragraph out early on, and I think that helps humanize him and make him likable. And he's just like a really likable guy. Like I really like him as a player. He seems to have a good radar for who's BS and who's real. But he ends up making an alliance with Sam for both being part of the LGBTQ community. They're a pretty tight duo alliance. He saves Sam when he's an influencer the second time. But he's also in the Team Melanin alliance with Raven and Marvin. And later that alliance falls apart with the Marvin stuff we talked about. But him and Raven are really tight, and Raven tells him about the Marvin betrayal, and Raven also tells him Tamira is cool because she told me all this. So he's really besties with Raven. Chaz is also very tight with Tom and Jennifer. They make the 3 peas in a pod alliance. I hate that every group chat turns into an alliance and they have to put like a dumb hashtag name for it. He also makes one group chat that's like Jennifer and Sam and him, and they bond about astrology. I don't know if that's the astrology alliance, but almost everyone has like a tight and close alliance with Chaz, and I just admire that he has made that happen. I'm definitely team Chaz for the win. There's 1 or 2 other people I'm rooting for in the circle, but he is number 1 for me. So next I want to talk about Bruno, which is a profile played by Billie Jean. Billie Jean is 25 from London, and she's a model and radio host. And she's playing kind of just a boy version of herself, like a hot guy, but her tactic is to flirt with the ladies and use that. Billie Jean's game was the perfect example of how catfish hold back too much and play too hesitantly. There's a reason why a lot of like the big personalities that seem very authentic, like Chaz and Raven and Sam, they have like a very distinct point of view when they chat. And a lot of the catfish that are unsure of themselves just respond in the blandest possible way to everything, just very generic responses, and end up seeming like they have no personality. And Billie Jean just injected 0 personality into Bruno to the point where everyone was suspecting he was a catfish, and no one really liked him. And Chaz really tried, and even tried to like DM him and tell him, you need to get vulnerable, you need to show your personality. And Billie Jean just never got the memo. And he ends up getting blocked by Sasha. He was just giving nothing. And that's kind of all I can say about his gameplay. Next, let's move on to Jennifer, which is a pretty interesting case. Jennifer is a catfish profile of a 51-year-old dog trainer. She has kind of a mom vibe. She's actually embraced more of an aunt vibe for this game. But she is played by the first outs of the season, Xanthi and Brett. Xanthi is a 25-year-old model. She's Greek, and she got blocked the first round. Each influencer got to block someone, so the first round was a double block. She was going in as herself, but lying about her profession as well. And then Brett is just kind of a stereotypical douchey guy. Apparently he competed in Big Brother, which when I heard that I was hopeful, like, oh, maybe he'll bring some actual strategy. He has not contributed as much as you'd expect. But yeah, Jennifer is playing like surprisingly a great game. I don't understand why. She's very generic in her responses, and it feels like she's just giving like a toxic positivity vibe. Like everything she says is just like overwhelming positivity and pray your hands and hashtag blessed or whatever. And I don't like it, but everyone seems to like her and be on good terms with her, and no one suspects she's a catfish. I think Xanthi is doing most of the work, like 95% of the work, and Brett is not contributing much. I also have a lot of questions about this duo living together. They're like strangers, Xanthi and Brett, and they just met and now they have to live together and fake be this Jennifer person. It's very strange. Jennifer comes in with another player named Tom as new players. So Jennifer has a really tight alliance with Tom. They go on a date. And they're playing her really well. I mean, like, I wouldn't like her being in the circle just because, like, she seems very fake in her positivity, but everyone's into her, so whatever they're doing, it's working. I guess they're a funny duo living together, and I'm wondering if production wants them to like hook up and hoping they do, and maybe they saw 2 straight hot people get eliminated the first round and were like, let's put them together, see what happens. Maybe they'll make this dating theme worthwhile. But they seem very platonic to me. Even though they seem like they would fit together in a weird way, they're just a weird unconventional pair that worked. And they get a special power at the very end of episode 8 to be the hacker, so we'll see how they use that. Next is Tom. He's one of my lesser favorite players this season, even though he's doing well. In the last ranking we saw, he got top placement, and it's because the ranking came right after he got vulnerable with his big paragraph of his sob story background. Everyone has their paragraph ready, that's my theory, for when the moment comes to be vulnerable. Tom is 36. He's also British, from London. He lives in the London Tower of London, and I didn't know what that was. I still kind of don't know what it is. And he's a stand-up comedian, which I think I was just kind of annoyed, even though I know everyone on the circle is there to promote themselves. I just felt like, oh, he's just on the circle to launch his career as a stand-up. And I also don't think he's very funny. I've said it before, but I feel like hot people kind of laugh at anything, and there are times when everyone's like laughing at Tom's jokes, and I'm just like, is it that funny? And when Oliver comes in later on, he's all intimidated because right away Oliver shows off how funny he is. And he's like, oh crap, this guy's funny. Like, actually funny. But yeah, he has a strong alliance with Jennifer. I don't buy that he's actually trying to date her. I don't think anyone's trying to date anyone on this season. And I think they're just working with the theme they got. He is one of the few that seems to be suspicious of Marvin early on because they have a private chat where he's sharing about his date and Marvin's being a little vulgar for Tom's taste. And he's like, you don't seem like the feminist you claim to be because you're talking about women in a very bro-y way. So it's interesting Tom noticed that early on. That's the only like kind of gameplay strategy thing that I found interesting about Tom. Jennifer and Tom are like such a duo that that's what makes them powerful. I don't think individually they're playing that amazingly, but I think that's just my opinion because a lot of people like both of them. So next let's move on to Sasha, who is played by Shubham from season 1. Kind of an all-stars moment for the circle. I've noticed this is a thing in all the circles. They kind of bring in a celebrity. They brought the Spice Girls at one time and then Lance Bass, but that was fake. The circle kind of likes to throw in like a star player here and there every season. But the catch with Shubham is this time he has to catfish. And they don't give him his profile until he's there and it's a hot girl and he's not sure how to play that. Sasha/Shubham has a terrible game. It was just like bad decision after bad decision, and most of them were like just kind of bad luck because right away Sasha decides to flirt with Bruno, not knowing Bruno was like an unpopular player. Sasha comes into the circle with Tamira, who just ended up giving a more genuine vibe than Sasha, and they were both hot girls, so they kind of felt like similar profiles at first, but Tamira just had more genuine energy, even though she's also a catfish. Sasha was kind of screwed by that. She had to block someone right away. Once she talked to Jennifer, realized Jennifer and Tom are kind of a package deal. She realized Bruno was the way to go for blocking, but she had already given her word to Bruno. So when Billie Jean did her goodbye message for Bruno, she called out Sasha specifically and how Sasha betrayed her. So Shubham was kind of screwed from there. Once you make one mistake in the circle, you are going to be targeted. Because Shubham knew this, he kind of played really hard after that, and that put people off. He tried to make a newbie revolution and get the 5 newbies together against the 4 OG players, and I thought that was actually a great strategy. The problem was that the newbies did not have strong enough connections with each other. Sasha's plan didn't work, but I really loved, this was the first time I feel like on the circle I saw like explicit strategy being talked about, but people were not on board for that. I understand why. Ultimately, Sasha gets called out as a man in the Savage Questions games, and Shubham explodes and gets very aggressive in his message back. And it's that message that ultimately leads Chaz to concede in the influencer chat and block Sasha. Shubham gets blocked, but he gets his special power to deliver, and he chooses Jennifer to bestow that too. It was so funny, Shubham recognized Brett from Big Brother. Like, I love when I find out, like, people on TV or celebrities are a fan of a reality show. It kind of felt like when I find out a celebrity likes Survivor. So yeah, I like Shubham, and I think he's actually a nice guy. He just did not play a girl well. He didn't play his game well. Sad to see him go, but he's already had his finale moment and all that. Next I want to talk about Tamira, who is a profile played by Tasia. Tasia is 28, she's from Las Vegas and works in cybersecurity, she said. She's a self-proclaimed asshole, which I love on reality TV. She says she's a lesbian, but she's gonna play Tamira as bisexual in order to flirt with the most amount of people. That's part of her strategy. And like I said, Marvin is into her right away, and Tasia is great at seducing him. I mean, it's very easy. It doesn't take much to seduce him, but Tamira has a strong strategy. I just love Tasia as a player. She is playing villainously. She's not afraid to just lie about things to look good. She's competitive. Like, I see that fire in her. And I'm rooting for her pretty much as I'm rooting for Chaz. I just think Chaz has a better chance because he came in earlier. Tasia's just playing how I want everyone to be playing the circle, and I want her to go on Survivor. Like, even her making the clay boobs for the clay challenge was strategic. She's like, everybody loves boobs. I knew I would win right away. And when she's on the date with Marvin, it's so funny because he's sending her his sexy pic and she's just like, I like his shirt. Definitely not what he's picturing on the other end. Tasia has also had a few moments where she's had to be tested because she is playing a glamour girl and she's not like glamorous in her own style. She keeps being asked about beauty products or skincare and she's been having to just roll with it and give good answers, and so far she has passed. So I don't know if they're leading up to maybe her failing a question about that, but hopefully she stays strong. I like that now she's in with Raven and she's in with Chaz. So I'm hoping for Chaz and Tasia top 2. And finally, the last player to come in the circle, and he makes a grand entrance. During the glam party, they're all sharing their glamorous photo, and at the end, they send Oliver's picture, and that's his entrance into the circle. His full stage name is Oliver Twixt, and he is 26 from Atlanta, and he's a rapper and content creator. He's a really great personality. I follow him on Instagram. I am rooting for him to win the circle. I would love for him to win, but he was such a late arrival. I don't know that he has the best chance. Maybe he had scheduling issues that made him be such a late arrival. That's something else I don't love about the circle, is just how late they're still adding players. It's okay to add players in like the first 2 or 3 episodes, but beyond that, it just feels unfair to the late arrivals. It feels unfair to the people that have survived this long. I don't understand why people are so late. And in this case, I'm so mad Oliver was put as the last person when immediately when he comes on screen, he is amazing TV. So I feel like he would have been a great cast member to have from the beginning. I wish he had been. I feel like I was duped into watching this season just for him, and he wasn't even in the first 6 episodes. So far, he hasn't had much time to strategize or play the game. He bonded with Sam, and that's his tightest alliance so far, and he loves all the compliments he's getting. Clearly everyone sees his arrival as like a potential for a number for their team, so everyone's being pretty nice to him. He does get kind of ambushed into that newbie revolution plan that Shubham was trying to make like on his first morning there. I hope he does okay, but I worry he has been too late. Regardless, he's gonna make great TV, and I'm glad there's no more arrivals coming. That's all the contestants. Those are my thoughts on their journey so far. Let me know who you're rooting for season 5 of The Circle. I kind of hated the show for the first 6 episodes. Everything from the clay challenge onwards was actually really fun, and I really enjoyed it, and I fell a little bit back in love with The Circle. That's my opinion. I would love to hear what you think about The Circle itself as a whole, about these first 8 episodes, or about any of the contestants. I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos once or twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!